So for the past couple of years, first at Mozilla and now at Google, I've been working on finding my mouse cursor. There we go. Figuring out, it's a couple of years from now, you put on a headset and you surf the web. What is the future that we want? What's the kind of sites that we want to see? What are the kind of experiences that we want to facilitate? And I think facilitate is the right word. I've had this analogy. I love bad analogies. You're going to hear a couple today. That I don't really think of myself as a designer in this. I think of myself almost like a gardener. Like what I'm trying to do is to create possibility. I don't really care if whatever I make in the next year is completely obsolete. In fact, I hope for it. We have the same attitude on A-Frame. What I want to do is create the conditions where people can just create amazing experiences that are going to be what we remember the web for 10 years. They're going to give rise to the worth of the web. So I want to frame this talk in that fashion. What I've been trying to think about is, by the way, that's all CSS. It was pretty fun making a CSS VR browser. I'm going to talk more about that later today, why that's unexpectedly cool. Casey and I a couple years ago were talking about what we saw as being a Cambrian explosion of browsers. For years, we've been trying to stuff browsing into these little 3.5-inch to 6-inch screens. There's not a lot of room to innovate there. And the platforms underneath us are totally stable. Like there's no real fundamental innovation in interaction model since 2007. Steve Jobs got up on stage, said what it was going to be, and it's been pretty fixed. VR, conversely, it's an infinite canvas. It's totally infinite. And the hardware, it's fluctuating underneath us rapidly. And meanwhile, render engines, the ability for anyone in this room to go and build their own browser, are completely commoditized. So it's like we're walking around with unlicensed particle accelerators in our back, and anyone can just go and pick one up from the lobby. I think we're about to see an explosion in browsers, and in the UX of browsers, from the one aimed at kids as a mixture between Cortana and an animated character, versus a Neuromancer inspiration for a power user that looks more like Vim or Emacs. Like all of this becomes possible. It's wonderful. So with that in mind, and thinking back to the desire to facilitate growth of the ecosystem, what are the things that we think all browsers should do consistently? Where are the boundaries between total freedom and a couple guardrails that we think will help the ecosystem to grow faster? This is a conversation I want to have, and the point of this talk is to throw a couple out that I've been thinking of, just three simple ones, and then let's have a conversation today and on Twitter about, hey, yeah, you know what? It's better for the web if all browsers, if all user agents do X. First one. Avoid 2 minutes? Avoid dead zones. Maximize for creative freedom of 360 experiences. Don't take real estate away from developers. I know your UI is really cool, but do not burn a dead zone into the 360 canvas developers have to work on by making that UI persistent. Have it just disappear. I think this is really, really important. We don't know what developers are going to do. Let's maximize when we give them creative freedom. By the way, this is old and ugly. What we may release will be cooler and newer. Facilitate speed. That's the web's core value proposition. We can't necessarily compete based on just raw graphics performance, but we can compete on speed. So let's do everything we can to make sure people aren't waiting 60 seconds or 90 seconds or 3 minutes for something to load. Let's figure out best practices up front. Let's bake them into the browser. I love this. Like, if visual performance was the only basis of competition that mattered in product design, we'd all be watching Blu-ray instead of Netflix. Of course, we're not. So, for example, this is us playing around with trying to figure out how WebVR link-to-link transitions will work. I can show more of this after. We're obviously pretty limited on time. And I think Casey and CVN are coming up right after to talk about how on earth this would actually work. And 3, support the whole web. Every site should work. You should be able to go to a site from years and years ago, and it should still work to the bleeding edge. The analogy here is mobile Safari. We get to do what the Apple team did in 2006, which is take a web that was never designed for this medium and bring it forward. I'm doing a lot of experimentation inside of Google on this one, from just basic browsing, scrolling, zooming, to actually grabbing the window and actually moving it around in 3D space for comfort purposes. There's a lot of really exciting features, I think, here. It seems unsexy, but I think we could make it actually compelling to browse even classic 2D content in the web. And I'll be saying more about that later. Last thing is, again, weird analogies, big paws and oil tankers. As browser vendors, let's leave ourselves room to grow. Let's not paint ourselves in the corners. And let's keep an eye on the speedboats in front of us. We're oil tankers. We're slow. We got a lot of legacy obligations. Janus, Altspace, what people can do with commoditized render engines, they're what we can learn from, and we can kind of pave the cow path as they discover what works. So thanks very much.